Hey, it's Natalie Brown Rudd and the founder of Because of His Grace Ministries. And in this video, I want to talk to you about my perspectives on Black History Month, because here we are in another year and we are celebrating the history of Black people, African American people in this country. And as you know, this is the month, the shortest month of the year that we have been given the opportunity to promote our history. And I've just got some questions that I want to pose to you that I want you to start to critically think about and to be able to answer. Because every year, I think it's interesting that we repeat the same story. We repeat the same narrative over and over again, and we teach it to our younger generations that are coming up, and we teach it in our school system or churches, different organizations. I mean, it becomes the focus of our history, of the story that's being told time and time again about Black people. And the history I find very interesting that it always starts at the point of slavery. Never before. It starts at the point of slavery, and then all of the different things that have happened to Black Americans, African Americans since that time. The condition of slavery and the after effects of slavery, and the people who then helped us to become free from slavery, and then the civil rights movement. And we repeat the same characters over and over again. You can list them: Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Sojourner Truth, all of these people, and don't forget about the inventors that we then pull in, and then our current political government leaders or successful Black people that we want to highlight, right? But it all begins at the point of slavery. Now, isn't that interesting? One of the questions we should be asking is why? Why do we always start Black history, our history, at the beginning of slavery? There are a set of questions that we should ask that should move us beyond this narrative, because I believe that we've mastered it. We've taught it time and time again. We all can repeat it. Now the little ones, our younger generations that are coming up, they are repeating it. We've mastered it. But I think that what we should do is start mastering a different narrative, asking a different set of questions, and making certain that we've got the whole picture versus just a portion of our history. Because it is true, the transatlantic slave trade is part of our history. But my question is, who were we before the transatlantic slave trade? Who were we before the 1600s, right? Where did we come from? What was our culture? What was our language? What was our religion? How did we live? What was our lifestyle? How did we dress? How did we treat one another? Because the narrative of Black people doesn't start in slavery. It started before. And I think we need to tell the entire story. But we've got to be able to start with asking a different set of questions. And those are the questions I just said. How would you answer them? If you were sitting around the dinner table with your family and these questions came up, hey, mommy, where do we come from before slavery? How would you answer that? Because history, American history, says that we were savages and swinging from trees like monkeys, right? And we know that that narrative is incorrect. We know that that narrative is a lie. But how would we answer the question? Have we taken the time to understand Black history before the 1600s? Have we taken the time to research it? We live in the nation time of information. It's at our fingertips. It's on our cameras, or excuse me, our computers. It's on our phones. It's at our fingertips. But we've got to be willing to ask the question and then do the research to find the answers versus rehearsing and repeating and regurgitating what we have been taught. We've got to ask the right questions, and we've got to be willing to search for the answers. Now, I believe from all of my heart that the Bible gives us clues into our history, that the Bible is a prophetic book as well as a historical book. And when you understand who the people are in the Bible and who the players are in the Bible and who they are today, you start to look at it differently, and you start to understand that there is a narrative beyond slavery. And that is the narrative that I want us to embrace. I want us to be willing to search out. I want us to be willing to say, hey, I know who I am. I know where I come from. I know my ancestors because I've been researching it. And it doesn't start in 1619 when my ancestors landed here through the transatlantic slave trade, because they were bought on ships from a place other than America. And they were scattered across the nations. And so it's important for us to be willing to research our history, to be able to tell it correctly to our children, to change the narrative so that it's not a part of our story, but that is the whole story. And so I challenge you to research, to search with all of your heart. Who were you before the 1600s? Where did you come from? What land? What continent? And if you say Africa, there's so many countries in Africa. Which one? Right? What was your dialect, your language? What was your culture? What was the food that you ate? Who was your God? What religion? What was your lifestyle? What did you do as an occupation? I mean, the list goes on and on, because when you start to ask one question, then other questions just naturally pop up. And it's really important for you to know your identity. Because for Black people, as we celebrate this Black History Month, our history was taken from us. Our identity was changed. When we were brought over, our ancestors were brought over here through the transatlantic slave trade, we were stripped of our names. We were stripped of our culture. We were stripped of our language. And we were stripped of our religion, our faith. And now we have evolved into the African American people whose history starts at the time that we landed in this country up until modern day. But in order to know where you are going, someone wise said, you got to know where you came from. And if you start at the wrong premise of believing that this is the beginning of our history, then you're going to end up in the wrong place, because you can't start off with faulty information and end up in the right place unless you make a detour to get back to the beginning to understand the origin of who you are and where you actually came from. And that history is rich, that can then influence how you live today, and especially how you live out your faith. So I really do encourage you this month, the shortest month of the year that's been dedicated to Black History Month, I encourage you to research your story, to research the narrative, to change it, to broaden it so that you can get the whole picture. And this is something that I started years ago, and I'm just now encouraging you to do it because it's so important. Your identity is so important. If it wasn't, it would have never been stolen from you. Your heritage is so vital to who you are in this world. And if it weren't, it never would have been changed and erased, right? If our history before the transatlantic slave trade was not significant, it would be included. But because it's so significant, and it can alter the way that you look at life, it can alter the way that you show up in life, and it will definitely alter the way that you look at the Most High God and how you walk out your faith. And that, my friend, is worth finding the answers. Now, I believe that the Bible, that I'm always speaking about as the blueprint, as the keys to life, is where you start. I believe that the Bible is Black history. I believe that when you study geography and understand the different countries, continents that are written in the Bible, you will see that Ethiopia is the first country ever mentioned, and that it's mentioned over thousands of times or 500 times in the Bible. And so it starts to say, well, where is the Bible located geographically? I couldn't say the word. Geographically. It's on the continent of Africa. Ethiopia is the first country to be named. What does that mean about the people? What does that say about their culture? What about their language? I mean, all of these questions just start to come to you. And so I ask that you search it out. We talked about this in our Sabbath lesson. We have a Sabbath lesson every Sabbath. And the name of the lesson, I'm looking at my notes, it was Hidden in Plain Sight, Search for Truth. And it goes through a lot of this information that I just shared with you. And we looked at scriptures, Deuteronomy 28. That's a big chapter if you want to understand a little history. We looked at Genesis chapter 10. Tells you about the nations of the people that were divided who filled up the world. We looked at Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 18, where it says it's hard, and we were talking about it's hard to accept the truth, sometimes to find out that there is more to the story than what's being told. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 18, it says, with knowledge and wisdom comes sorrow and grief, right? So there's some things that you'll find out as you search a matter, that there's some things that are not true, that you were thought that was true, but then you find out that it's not true. And there's some things that you'll find out that's very hurtful, but you still need the wisdom and you still need the knowledge, because Hosea chapter 4 says that my people, Yah is talking about his people, are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. We can't be destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. We can't be destroyed because we don't want to know the truth. We can't be destroyed because we're just receiving and then regurgitating what has been told to us. No, we have to be kings and queens and search a matter out, right? That's Proverbs 25:2. It says, it is to the glory of Yah, or to God, to conceal a matter, but to search out a matter is the glory of kings. We call each other kings and queens, so let's start acting like it and not settle for someone else to tell us our history, but then for us to take advantage and research our history so that we give our children, the next generation, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Identity matters. Culture matters. Who you were before the 1600s matters. And it's a part of creating a lifestyle of faith. Some of you will say, oh, Natalie, doesn't matter. I know Yeshua, Jesus, and that's all that counts. And I would say to you, dig deeper, because I believe that Yeshua died for us to walk in truth. And the scriptures say in John that his truth will set us free. And so before you scratch this off and say it doesn't matter, I want you to ask the question, is that true? Is that true? And if it didn't matter, then why aren't we talking about it in Black History Month? Why isn't it part of the conversation that we have at the dinner table that we share with all of our generations, younger generations coming up? These are just my thoughts that I wanted to pour into you. I pray that it blesses you, edifies you, and that you will take the next step to find out what is your history before. And you've got the whole month. That's what Black history is about, right? It's about you learning about your history. Okay. Any questions, any comments, drop them in the box below. I would love to answer your questions. And I am very adamant that there is so much more to the story than what's being told. So I look forward to your comments. I look forward to hearing from you as you research this thing out and walk in a way that honors the Most High God, your creator and the sustainer of your life, who loves you with an everlasting love. Be blessed.